Hello everyone and welcome to vectordream. My name's Anthony and today I'm going to be showing you the 1 to 4 player game AuZtralia that's on Tabletopia right now, soon to be on Kickstarter. In this video we're going to just run through the setup of the game, and in subsequent videos I'm going to run through the action spaces, explain how that works and some rules, and then we're going to jump into some gameplay. So stay tuned for that. Hello everyone and welcome to my run-through of AuZtralia on Tabletopia. AuZtralia is a 1 to 4 player game set in an alternate reality 1930s, in which Australia is waiting to be explored. In this sort of alternate reality, there's these creatures known as the Old Ones that have ruled the Earth, and humanity finally in 1888 struck back and were able to defeat them or push them back to a certain point where they could start exploring the rest of the world. And in doing so, they found Australia, which was a continent rich in resources and everything else. And the Old Ones, that battle that they had in 1888 sort of poisoned the land of the known, parts of the world at the time. So Australia is like a new continent that people just discovered, and they're like using it for the resources and food and everything else for humanity itself. So that's the basic backstory, and I can always go into that more later. This game will be on Kickstarter coming March 6th, so I wanted to do a run through of this game before that, and Tabletopia is like probably the easiest way to do that, since I can't get my hands on an advanced copy or anything like that. So let's get started. Anyways, I'm gonna go into the play solo here and pick the 1 player introductory solo game with land surveyed, and you'll see what that means. It basically means that most of the game is set up for us. Alright, so I have the game set up in another tab here already, so let me go ahead and click into that. So let's run through setup really briefly here, as fast as I can get through it. Let's go ahead. Alright, so the first thing you're going to do when you set up this game is to pick a color and set aside the components of that color and set up your player board. So red is the only color available in this Tabletopia version of the game, so red it will be. So I have all the cubes here in my HQ, and like I said, when you load the game up in Tabletopia, all this is done for you. I'm just touching on it. Okay, so all these cubes are here in your HQ, and these cubes are used to take actions on your player board here. And we're going to go over all these actions in a subsequent video. The next thing is, you'll see to the right here is your port meeple, your railway tracks that you're going to be using to build your railway with, the 3 separate kinds of farms. You have corn, sheep, and cattle farms. And then also too, you have some sanity tokens here. There's 3. You start with 3, and those tokens are used for battle when we get into battles with the Old Ones and stuff. Okay, this part of the player board is where your expeditionary force is going to be when you actually go out and battle and do things. And this is the cost of the different units and everything like that. So I'll go into that later, but we're doing setup right now. The second step is actually to set up the general supply, which is over here. So pretty straightforward. You have your iron, your gold, and your coal already set up here. And then these white discs are actually phosphate. So you can do a mining action in the game. And when you do that, if you mine a phosphate, you're going to get some victory points and some gold for doing that. We'll cover that later. Here's an additional sanity token because you could actually have 4 if you have the right cards and such in your hand. So we'll talk about that if it comes up. This is the action or attack marker. So we would basically put that on a hex that we were having a battle in, just to show that there's a battle going on there. I may or may not use that. It's not 100% necessary, honestly, in this solo version of the game, in my opinion, but we do have it. So that's the second step. The third step is to set up your warehouse. Now, in a normal game, you're going to have 2 iron, 2 coal, and 4 gold as a start. In the solo version, there are 3 different levels of difficulty, And the easy difficulty, that's why you see 3 here of each resource, and 6 gold is because that's the solo setup for easy. Now, if you want to go to hard, you could take away some of these. It'll tell you in the rulebook what to take away. And then there's a harder level above hard. So there's 3 different difficulty levels that I saw in the rulebook. But I'm just going to stick with easy because I'm trying to film this and, you know, I need all the help I can get. Anyways, step 4 would be to set up or shuffle these old one tiles and have them set aside on the board here to the left of the board so that we can use them as we play. All right, so step 5 would be to survey the land basically, or I should say set up the survey tiles and have them shuffled as they are here. And what you're going to do on this step would be to place a survey tile on a hex that has a survey marker. So you're going to put these out on the board, and the next step, which we'll just go into right now, once these are all out, and there's about 13 of them, you're going to flip these over. And when you flip these over, it's going to tell you exactly where to put things. So, for example, okay, the other thing I should mention, this arrow needs to be pointed north. That's very important. So, with the arrow pointed north, when you flip this over, you're going to be putting resources in the hexes around this space. So, for example, you're going to put 3 gold here, so on and so forth. But this, like I said, it's already been done for us. The survey part of the game is complete, which is a big help. Also note that during surveying, these old one tiles will never be placed in hills or coastal regions. So they will never be placed there during setup. I should also mention that during this surveying setup, resources are never placed in coastal hexes. So if you had a survey tile here and it was telling you to put resources here, then you wouldn't be doing that. I should also mention that when placing the resources, you could also place resources in the same hex as an old one. And also each hex can have more than one kind of resource. Okay, so another thing I should mention is when surveying the land and you already have placed an old one in a given hex and another survey tile calls for another old one to go there, they get upgraded to the next level. So instead of putting 2 level 1s in an area, you would just put a level 2 if that were to occur, and then there's a level 3 that happens after that. Step 7 would be to set up these different event decks, and there's 5 cards in each. There's more than that in the game, but we're only going to use 5 of each different 1, 2, and 3. So this has already been done for us with Tabletopia here. So the 5 cards have been shuffled, and you place these. You place these stacks on top of each other. So that would go here, and this stack would go here. So that's all set up. Step 8, which hasn't been done for us in Tabletopia here, is to set up the personality cards. And these are different characters you're going to be able to recruit to help your cause as you play the game. So as you saw, I like to move this deck over here underneath this supply area because I'm going to be going back and forth anyways. So I'd like to have them closer. So what you're going to do is you're going to draw 5 cards, and I'm going to draw 3 and then 2 to make my 5 cards. The reason I did that is because if you draw 5 like this, then they're going to come out like that, and what we want is them to be in a straight line like this. Let me shuffle that. So that's all shuffled. So a little tip that you might have noticed when I was doing this, I was using my mouse scroll wheel to increase the amount of cards I can take at one time. Otherwise, if you just come over here and drag and drop, you're going to just get 1 card at a time. But you can draw as many cards as you want. Like I can go up to 22 cards and take them all. But that's how I was doing that, if you were curious. Now I'm going to hold the shift key down and drag a box here to select all these cards, and I'm going to hit the F key to flip them all over at the same time. So these are the different starting characters we're going to have available to us for the action of, recruiting one of these to help us. And as you can see, these cards have different sort of things happening. But I'll go over that in the next video. I just want to continue with setup here. I should also mention, before I go on, this order of cards is very important actually. They need to be left to right, and the rightmost cards will be taken first. When things happen in the game, it'll tell you to assassinate a character or remove a card. It's gonna be pertaining to these right-hand cards. And when a card gets removed, you're gonna shift all the ones, like for example, if she was removed, we would shift these two cards over here and draw a new card to be in that spot. So the order, or the sort of the line of these cards, is set up in a certain way. So just so you know. All right, so the next part of the setup would be to grab the old one cards, have those shuffled and put off to the side. I like to move those down here just to be kind of closer to my player area, and I'll do the same with this. I'll put this down here. Also too, I'm gonna grab these the old one action cubes here. We're gonna be using these to show damage on our units when applicable. I'm gonna put those next to my player board actually. Okay, so there we go. The next part of setup would be to put out the military tiles on the board itself, on the respective spot that they're supposed to be on. To the right of these is the cost of those in gold. We'll go over that later. The next step is to go and put the old one disc on space 22. The old ones will not be an active player until we pass space 22. Once we pass space 22, then that's when they will start taking actions. So let me put that back. Also too, in a solo game, we start on space 1. I might not have touched on that earlier, but in a 2-player game, both players would start here, 3 and 4. So since it's a solo game, we start there. Okay, so for the final part of setup, we need to place our port in one of these coastal spots that have the little port icon on it. And we get to choose any. And I was thinking of going here first because you could build some railway up here and grab this sort of phosphate, or mine for that phosphate and get some victory points. But I think after thinking about it, I'm going to go here. And that's where I'm going to start my port. So that ends the setup. We are ready to go, ready to play the game. So in the next video, I'm going to go over these different action spaces and what we can do and what maybe some of these hexes and things mean out here. But until then, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Thank you.